From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode is one of our deep dives. We are going to dive deep into the High Republic book, A Test of Courage by Justina, Ireland. I am Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok, happy to be here discussing this wonderful book, technically a middle grade reader, which is weird because I finally felt I could comprehend everything.
Yeah, as a middle grade reader, but I did not feel in any way like I was not being tested as well by all the ideas. A test of courage. I felt like a mirror was being held up, and that was a good challenge for a middle reader book. But we're going to dive into all of the complexity and all of the great straightforward storytelling and action in this book. But first, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/forcecenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we are recommending the book we're about to talk about, A Test of Courage by Justina, Ireland. So if you haven't listened or read it yet, just push pause on this podcast. We have like 1,000 other Star Wars podcasts you can listen to, and then give a listen to Test of Courage, and then come back here for our discussion. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/forcecenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/forcecenter for your free audiobook. And we have another offer going right now, Ken.
We do. Inside Editions, publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books, is offering 35% off across their entire website with a special Force Center code. To get your discount, enter the coupon code FC35 or visit the website with this link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. FC35. This week, we're recommending the Inside Editions book, Star Wars, Knitting the Galaxy. That's right. Knit your way through the Star Wars galaxy and check it out with that code FC35.
That is right. I would like to see an updated book of Knitting the Galaxy as well with some of the High Republic characters. I definitely want to knit, or I can't knit, so ask my wife to knit Loden Greatstorm. That would be great.
Oh, yeah.
A storm of knitting. All right. It is just High Republic time all over the Star Wars galaxy here in our real world because there's just so much to discuss. We discussed the Light of the Jedi, the big kickoff book, even though a lot of the stuff is coming out at the same time. Light of the Jedi really kind of set some of the big picture storytelling and the big picture stakes. And we had a great and long discussion about it with our wonderful friend Alex Damon of Star Wars Explained. He was super excited about Light of the Jedi, and as we all were. And then we're getting to the High Republic. We're getting to A Test of Courage, which is the middle reader. And then I know we both have in our hands the next book, Claudia Gray's Into the Dark, which is a young adult book. What does age even mean anymore? So we'll be getting to that as well. But for now, we're discussing A Test of Courage. And it's always on these discussions, we like to let you know this is full spoilers, as many spoilers as you can imagine. Sometimes we start our discussion with the last sentence of the book. It's full spoiler time. So with that, Ken, let's go into our overall reactions. What are your big picture reactions to A Test of Courage? Did you love it, like it, struggle with it? Where'd you go?
No, this was a lot of fun, and I've already made one joke. I'm sure we'll make more, the middle grade reader thing. And it's like when you watch Star Wars Rebels and it goes to commercial, you're reminded that Star Wars is truly for all ages, and some things are very specific for some ages. But from the beginning, I want to shout out Justina, Ireland, who, not just being just a great writer, but it takes a certain skill to write a book that is intentionally for, quote, younger audiences, but doesn't talk over them or doesn't talk under them. It talks at them and with them and communicates with them. And then because of that, because it's streamlined in a way, it just turns into some very powerful lessons for all of us. And I really felt that all the way through the book. And I just had a lot of fun. And that's part of Star Wars, but also fun going, man, I wish I was just 11 again and I had this book in my hands.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, and I think these certainly High Republic is really demonstrating it. We run into it with other Star Wars books. I read Justina Ireland's Spark of the Resistance book. Some of our favorite Star Wars books that we all discuss is our young adult books, and sometimes there are things of like, yeah, of course, the size of the book, the size of the font, it can be like a visual reminder that this book is keeping in mind people of specific ages. but with all Star Wars, sometimes all ages feels right. Of like, yep,
Mhm.
these are stories that are designed for everyone, and sometimes a specific book like this is designed to be an entry point for a specific age, but that doesn't mean it isn't also for people like us who have some gray in our beards, as you put it so well.
Well, the gray does it for us there, right? In terms of putting it well. Yeah, no, yeah, just a lot of fun. And yeah, I joke, but it's like a Thrawn novel from Timothy Zahn or the Alexander Freed stuff. Great, dense, a lot of things going on in those books. And I joke, but especially with the young adult ones too. It's like sometimes, man, this is more my speed for my life right now. Where I'm just like, oh, cool. Um, I get to just, sit and relax and enjoy a real straightforward Star Wars story. So, anyways, that's part of what I really loved about this book in my hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will not take your jokes away from you about feeling like middle reader books are at your your
Right.
speed. But I think there is a real structural thing that novels like the Alphabet Squadron or Thrawn books are structurally complex and jump around a lot. And there's something that is in the Star Wars spirit of adventure and cliffhangers and fast movement when you're just going through with this small group of
Mhm.
characters, really 4 to 5 main characters, and you just zip through the adventure with them. That sometimes taps into that Star Wars structure and feel of you start an adventure and then you just get zipped along the line, you know?
Yeah. Mhm. And please take my jokes, man. Take my jokes. They need to.
Take your jokes, please. Okay, I will. Got it. Uh, yeah, for me, I was surprised at how much I loved this. I really liked Justina Ireland's Spark of the Resistance, but in comparison, it did feel like the storytelling was a little boxed in by that being a book set between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. And could only kind of take the characters so far. And this just felt like the same kind of spirit, the same kind of ideas, the same things I liked about Justina Ireland's writing in Star Wars, but just exploding because there's so much room to breathe in this new High Republic age. So a
Mhm.
couple things that I really specifically loved about it is in the grand tradition of Star Wars, it is absolutely a coming of age story, and it is literalized. I love how much it's literalized, that it is a metaphorical trip through darkness in which they literally crash on a dark jungle acid rain moon planet, and
Mhm.
then they go through these trials and they come to a better understanding of themselves, and they literally ascend up to the starlight beacon. So I love how kind of visceral that coming of age story is. If you start at a kind of place of stasis, then you go into this dark, challenging, scary place, and you work your way out of it, and you ascend up to a place of hope. And that was literally and emotionally what's happening in this book.
Mm. Yeah, that Starlight Beacon, a hope for all the galaxy. But yeah, that journey, and it was again. I can keep saying fun, 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 but just that planet and all the adventures, and also we're going to dive into. Just you were able to just really connect with those themes, and tell so many just important little life lessons in this adventure. And I really connected with all those. And again, we're I'm seconding you on that. But what a great little adventure.
Yeah, yeah, and just for me, it is. I emotionally feel it. It's more visceral when it is like, yeah, no, they're stuck on a dark, scary jungle with acid rain. You feel that as a trial. The other thing for me, for overall, I really liked the pace. I liked that we kept the same story moving forward while also changing perspectives, chapter to chapter. It wasn't the kind of a point of view where we saw a lot of different characters' perspective on an event. It
Mm,
was constantly changing perspectives of the characters, so the individual characters and their trials were moving forward, but then the actual overall story was moving forward. And as much as I love the complexity of some of the other Star Wars novels, it is fun to read one that kind of has its foot on the gas while
mhm,
also spending plenty of time with each character. And the final thing I liked about this, which I thought was really, really unique and really interesting, the book had like great pace. Events kept happening,
mm,
so it didn't ever feel like it was stagnating to me. But it had to me what was kind of a unique Jedi perspective. Like in analyzing Jedi philosophy, we know that what the Jedi believe, or most of them, is, just like Yoda says to Luke, adventure and excitement are not the things to be craved. Violence is not a thrill. Conflict is not a thrill. We, the audience, get a vicarious thrill out of watching the Jedi's, conflicts, actual physical conflicts. But this book really had the Jedi perspective of violence is to be avoided at all costs. It is not the end all be all day to day activity of a Jedi. It is a thing that is sad that it has to happen. And when it does, it's quick and perfunctory and it is not thrilling. And in perspective, in particular, I thought that perspective came across because we hear so much about the Force from the two Jedi characters. We see them wrestling with their relationship to the Force. We see them wrestling with trying to use the Force for knowledge and defense. And then really at the end, there's that brief moment of violence and conflict, of Jedi action, but it's just so short. It's still thrilling and it's still powerful, but it's just not celebrated. It just happens quickly and they go back to worrying about their relationship to the Force.
I think, yeah, I'm right there with you on that, because I think it took some big themes, and this is where the story benefits from needing to be for a younger audience. It took some big themes that are at play in a lot of Star Wars movies and books and stuff, debated even, and it really just presented it in a real simple, easy to digest form, therefore easier to just there it is and understand. And I think that's one of the successes, and it keeps in line with George's vision of teaching the kids, teaching the kids to grow. So I know what you mean, and Justina Ireland really knew every character in this book. To slide the perspectives around and stick to this core, stick to that Jedi philosophy. She really knew what she wanted to do with these characters.
Yeah, and she made me feel it. She made me really feel walking in Vernestra's shoes in particular, where Vernestra is thinking about the Force all the time, but her relationship with the Force is absolutely about knowledge and defense and understanding it. And then when violence has to happen, it is so quick and perfunctory and not celebrated by Vern. And like, oh wow, this book is such a great, like, that's what it feels like to, be a day-to-day Jedi, when you're not at war in particular. So I really, that really elevated it for me, because it's such a great example of that. So I want to ask you a couple other general questions, then we'll dive into all those big ideas. So, like all of these initial High Republic stories so far, the events kind of overlap with one another, with Light of the Jedi in particular. They all, including the comics, use the opening of Starlight Beacon as a sort of a thematic and narrative anchor. Do you think that works to have all of these individual stories that are all still tying to kind of these very specific beats? And how would you feel if this was the first High Republic book you read? Do you think it would work for you without having read Light of the Jedi first?
Yeah, look, Light of the Jedi is this wonderful start to this whole series, and this book kind of reconfirms that for me. Meaning, Justina Ireland or any author who was leading off could have and would have filled out just a bit more of the state of the galaxy, a bit more was going on, but they didn't need to because Light of the Jedi exists. Same with the comic. I've just started to catch up with the comics. But so Light of the Jedi to me is like the Starlight Beacon itself. It's the center of this thing, and everything keeps flowing back to that story because it's so done so well. So with that said, I'm happy with their way they're laying this out. And with just a few tweaks, could this have launched the whole thing? Yeah, because what happens with the steady wind, that could have been the precursor to the bigger great disaster and the emergencies. So I'm gonna, emergencies. So yeah. I love the way it is my answer, I guess. But you could have gone either way. Either comics could have launched it. You just little details here and there. But this highlights how well the Light of the Jedi was in terms of starting it all off and giving us just a feel for that world, because I never felt lost in this book.
Yeah. I think that they're doing a really good job of, you could start with any book, any of the comics so far. I think Light of the Jedi is sort of like, it's the key, it's the legend to the map that really lets you know the big picture details of the great disaster, and lets you into the headset of the Nile and Marchion Row in particular. But all of these books so far are a great entry, and there's something that is each time that I've been reading one of these stories and kind of knowing that, well, these Jedi are heading up for their great San Diego Comic Con convention of Jedi on the Starlight
Yeah.
Beacon, that it is elevating. The beacon is already well constructed to be this elevated thematic idea as well as a place, but knowing that all the Jedi are going to converge there in all of these initial stories, it gives it
Mhm.
this extra weight. I also think there's something about the way that uh, Light of the Jedi follows a bunch of individual Jedi, so we get that they are individuals impacted by the big event. But then this book is just individuals who are impacted by these events. And, if the reader has read Light of the Jedi, we actually know more about what's going on than they do. Uh,
Right.
but I think it is by focusing on just a few individuals, there's something that feels like it's really reinforcing the philosophy of Star Wars, that we are all connected and that we matter as individuals and our choices matter, but we're all connected to this larger story. And there's something
Mhm.
about reading this that feels like strangely accurate to real life. Like, I'll have my day's adventure, but then something will happen in our world where, well,
Mm.
we're all aware of this
Yeah.
thing that changed because of the virus, because it happened to all of us today, but I also had my own individual adventure, and that feeling in this book is really strong to me.
It just it just goes to show that the years of planning for this series, we're just starting it out, but it's already just kind of a success in my mind by exactly what you said. This feels like, I'll say that, that phrase fleshed out world, which is critic phrase, but it's working. You're so right. It's like you want to jump into the story and tell Vernestra what's going on, or tell a bigger picture, or even when the Nile are there, and which strike and which tempest they're part. You just feel like you feel in the know, but you don't feel lost without it. Again, if you're listening, you're like, this is your entry point into it. You shouldn't feel lost because they handle it so well. But yeah, really enjoying this larger world they're giving us, and then smaller adventures are hidden.
Yeah, yeah. So here's my last kind of big picture question. Much like Light of the Jedi, this is a complete story of an event. But this book, A Test of Courage, also feels like the first chapter of an ongoing story. It even ends with kind of a cliffhanger of a different member of the Nile who is got a hideous, awful plan. And I love the cliffhanger vibe because I like that part of the Star Wars roots of the adventure serials and things like that it came from, at least partially. So I love the cliffhanger vibe. Um, but how do you feel about the fact that this is the first chapter, but it's clearly an ongoing story? Were you left with like any sort of stress or anxiety about, well, when are we going to pick up with these characters again?
No, part of that might just because of you know I'm glad with not having an entire shelf of books to read in one weekend or something like that. But I can only imagine if I was 11 and this would feel like my adventure. Feels like my little world of a continuing story. I want to know. I want to spend time with these characters again. And that's not new to Star Wars, but to have it in almost like, I don't know, you're at a holiday party and the adults are in one room and the kids are in the other. It really feels like that in a great way. And I'm an adult in the adult room going, I want to know more. What's going to go on the Dalnan section, and all that kind of stuff. So it really set up well, and that's going to make the High Republic just really have a lot of layers of fun going forward.
Yeah, I think for me, it's this great exercise in patience because it's fun to have these cliffhangers, like with Light of the Jedi, with a Loden Greatstorm, and now with this, for me, like Vern is a very young Jedi Knight taking on Imri as a Padawan, and I have
Mhm.
that impatience of, okay, but when are we going to follow up on that story, and how, in which writer, in which format, and we don't necessarily know all those answers yet, and it is a good exercise in patience.
Yes, patient indeed. Yeah, and it's still the High Republic could still be slightly overwhelming. Exactly what you said of who continues who, what form, at what point do I have to buy a coloring book to learn what happened? Like all that jokes. We can make those jokes about the Disney stuff, the big machine of it all. But they're doing a great job of just of letting us know. So
Yeah.
patient indeed.
Absolutely. So, with that, we're going to get into some of the themes and the big ideas. As we sometimes do when we're reading these books, I try to pull out some of the themes that I think are prominent and some of the details, and then we can discuss a little bit and throw it back and forth and see if there are any other ideas that you found in there. Ken, do you mind if I launch into this first big picture idea?
Let's do it. It's a good checklist to refer to.
So to me, the biggest thing about this was it was a coming of age book, which is not surprising, given that's what a lot of this reading level is often coming of age, which makes a ton of sense. You were saying all these great things about what would it be like to read this book when you're the same age as the characters. It would be a different thing. Star Wars has a history of coming of age, but I feel like this book really dove into it in specific ways, kind of combining the idea of coming of age with the idea of going through different trials depending on your culture to get closer to being an adult, to even incorporating into that themes of loss, of literally losing or being disconnected from any sort of parental figure. So I thought it really doubled down, tripled down in a great way on the idea of coming of age. And a couple ways that this expresses itself. All four of these main characters, and J6, one could consider main character as well. All 4 to 5 face loss in the challenges to becoming their best self. Honesty, Weft literally loses his father in this accident that kicks off the book, or not accident, the sabotage of the ship. Imri loses his master. His master dies, so there is just straightforward. Two of these characters have just lost their literal parent or their parental figure. We learn that Avon Staros is estranged from her mother and has some complex feelings about that. And then we get this slightly different perspective that Vernestra Rowe is 16. She's a Jedi Knight, and she's on her first mission, but she's immediately asked to fill a parent, mentor, adult role. So she is both coming of age and also suddenly having to be the parental figure for 3 people who have either lost or are estranged from their parental figure. So I thought that was just like the actual challenges of what's going on with the characters are all about this coming of age and trials. And then we get mentions early on of the actual Jedi trials and what they're like, and that Vern took them and that Imri's worried about them. And then we learn that it's a part of Honesty's culture on Dalna that you go through the metamorphosis. It's making it really clear that it's a cultural tradition to, get closer to being who you're going to be when you're an adult. And then all 4 of those characters, I think, follow through on the straightforward journey of their challenged by something at the beginning that gets some amount of resolution by the end. Of Honesty, Weft resists going out into the world, and by the end, he wants to go to the Senate and testify about what the Nile have done. Quote I pulled, which I really love, from page 70, early on to establish where Honesty is starting from. He realized he was having an adventure, and he didn't like it one bit.
I mean, that's a tattoo I want now.
Right? That was so great to have that perspective. Just really solidly celebrated. If not, everybody is staring into the Twin Suns wanting adventure.
I call this being invited to a birthday party as an adult.
Yeah, like a surprise birthday party, even worse, right? Nobody needs that challenge. So, yeah, Honesty has this very specific arc set up. And then Avon Staros has family trauma we learned from being kidnapped as a child, and she feels that maybe her mother is pushing her away, maybe she's rejected. And by the end, she is finding some real connection with Imri and Honesty, and even has like a great, she's hugging them to comfort, and realizes, oh, wow, we're friends. So I thought that was great resolution on that. And then kind of a different approach. Imri fears that he isn't good enough to be a Jedi, and he does make a horrific mistake of dancing with the dark side for a moment, but by the end, he's embraced by Vernestra despite his failure. And then Vernestra feels challenged by being on her first mission as a knight, and her role as caregiver to Avon, because that's what her job was initially at the beginning of the book, was to watch over Avon. But by the end, she has successfully guided all of these young people through a trial, and even herself kind of graduates. If her challenge in this book has been, can I be a parental figure? By the end, she is the Jedi version of a parental figure. She is Imri's master. Quote I pulled for Vernestra is being a Jedi Knight was turning out to be a lot busier than Vernestra had thought it would. Another nice realistic perspective. And then my last kind of bullet point on this is even the droid J6 is evolving. Which some stuff that we've experienced with droids before, but I think it really starts to tie into this big picture theme that J6 has, like that pouty teen moment where she's thinking deep thoughts and doesn't want to tell anybody what they are, and that implication that she's maybe going to go too far with her blasters. And one of the last thoughts that we check in with her on is this idea that she wants to think about what upgrades she wants, and that's just such a great droid way to say, I'm trying to come of age. I'm trying to decide who I want to be. I'm trying to think of what upgrades I want. I thought about what upgrades I wanted between seventh and eighth grade, you know?
I think that's the year you kind of get upgrades regardless, right? You just you have to come to terms with the upgrades, but yeah,
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I
yeah.
wanted to ask you about the big picture of this theme. Did the coming of age trials theme resonate with you? And did it feel like it was fresh in this story, given that that is a lot of what Star Wars storytelling is?
Yeah, a great point because yeah, coming of age, it's like we've been living that since '77 in Star Wars, but again because Justina Allen knows these characters so well and what she was able to accomplish, and just make it so clear and so different and new and big, and I felt what was really effective in this one is it wasn't it is you had four kids essentially lost in the big world and with no one else around them, and any lessons have already been given to them at this point and they're cut off from those lessons, and it's about figuring out for yourself, and with those around you and the big themes coming of those around you, indeed, and that's where it really worked for me, where it did feel, I don't know, it wasn't like they all were locked in a detention room on a Saturday and they had to come come of age from that one. But you know what I mean? Like it just was clear and vibrant, for each one going through their trials, each one making choices to grow up when you can maybe even shrink back. This was a great junior high adventure. This was like junior high drama class for me.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think the contrast with their situation in the state of the galaxy, like since we know the bigger world,
Mhm,
and we can so feel them being just pushed off the deep end of the pool. And you're right. I think about the fact that this book really highlights they have the lessons now. They're trying to implement them because there is a lot of them
mhm,
thinking through what their parents or masters have told them. There are a lot of just them literally pulling quotes. They're like, remember when my dad said this? Remember when my master said this? Remember when my mom said this? Maybe this will help me get through this. And I think it probably just heightens it that they are in both physical danger, and this is also a journey of loss and grief. It's
mhm.
not like, oh, when we get out of this, what will Master Douglas think? It's that he's gone
Right.
and I can never get advice again, and I might die. And I think that really heightens it in a great way.
Yeah, a little heightened. Yeah, I had some problems in junior high, but no acid rain or space pirates coming after me. But yeah, no, and the loss, the trauma, the loss, and how they all kind of deal with that is, especially there's some great moments. I'm thinking of like them just kind of, honesty, crying, trying not to cry, or Emery hiding tears, following the immediate loss, of what everything they went through with the steady wind. Real powerful stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Did any one of these characters or their specific wrestling with coming of age grab you, or feel like it was something you've been through?
I was particularly moved by Emery's journey. The lesson that really kind of popped up is that failure is not the end, and that even anger doesn't guarantee that the next step has to be hate. Obviously, runs deep in Star Wars, and Luke was still learning that when we meet him on that island again. So, therefore, Emery's journey is there for all of us, and it's to have it kind of broken down. Again, I keep going to that idea of broken down to a simple form of falling to the dark side doesn't always involve world domination or galaxy domination, right? That's the big end of it, and that's the big dramatic storytelling stuff and Palpatine. But it is daily. It is something that is a daily challenge. But and unlike the Gray Jedi and all those kind of things we debate over and everything, this is just on a very small, real life level of these things going through your head aren't, the anger, the loss, coming to terms with it aren't the problem. your choices and reactions are what can lead to problems. But even then, you still have choices, and that's big in Star Wars. We talk about Kylo and Ben Solo, Vader, even what Luke's going through. I keep going back to Luke, and like I wish Emery could talk to Luke, and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, you might have a moment. I had those moments too, 300 years ago, or whatever, 200 years ago, and so that one connected with me.
Yeah, I thought that was really powerful, that idea of it isn't this big, and that's how he became the big bad of Star Wars, of, like, he made it a bad choice in a hard situation, but he's met with, this forgiveness and said, "Hey, yeah, no, anger is," and Vernestra kind of, repeating a little bit of Padme wisdom of, yeah, no, anger is real and it's going to happen. What matters is how you respond to it. And in this particular instance, you responded poorly, and that is going to be the challenge every day. And it made me
Mm,
think of the great Obi-Wan scene when Maul takes someone he loves from him, and Maul just expects, of course, he's just gonna
mm,
Obi-Wan's just gonna snap. His eyes are gonna go yellow right now, and Obi-Wan's like, no, this is the whole thing. Of course I'm
yeah.
upset, but I've been working on this my entire life. That's the point. I thought it was such a great perspective from this really kind, really likable kid. And even the power of earlier, Imri had said, no, we don't seek revenge. I know it.
Right.
I know that. But it was still really hard to follow through on not doing that.
Well, and this is weird. I had a slight spoiler for something like this coming in this particular book. There's just so much High Republic stuff out. We have a section on the Force in our Discord that is marked spoilers, but sometimes I might swing through it just to clear notifications or whatever. And I knew there was some kind of dance with the dark side coming, and so because of that, I think I leaned back on my just 40 years of Star Wars fandom. We're like, oh, okay, well maybe one of the kids goes to the dark side and it's Sith like, and he wants to take over the world or kill, kill, kill. And then when it rolls out and it's so real and it was so small scale in a way, not small to Emery, the loss he felt is not small, but you know what I mean? Like it wasn't this gigantic Star Wars turn to the dark side. It was like, no, this thing you're feeling is normal. Your reaction to it is even normal, but that's where the turn can begin. Wow, it really worked for me.
Yeah. And the utter power of Imri feeling that loss and that anger, and that I don't want to be sad and I feel like I have more control when I'm angry, which I think is just such an accurate
Mhm.
description of emotions as I've experienced them. But the fact that a lot of it is, it's his great gift in the Force is feelings, right? Is being able to tap into other people's feelings, and he taps into Honesty's anger, and that's just such a great picture of anger
Mm.
in the Force as an analogy for the real life of, like, it's much easier to give into your anger when you're, you know when it's being fueled by the angry person next to you.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
powerful stuff. I really liked all the characters. There's something about Vernestra's journey and her character that I was really drawn to. I think because I like steadfast characters. I like
Mm.
heroes like Captain America or Superman or Wonder Woman, who are characters who are generally don't break, but they are really challenged. And I
Mm.
just, there's something about Vernestra as a, yeah, everything's gone great for me. I was really encouraged by my culture of origin, the Mirrorlands, to be a Jedi. It's celebrated. I'm really good. I got a great teacher. I know some of it is my hard work. I know some of it is my luck. But I feel pretty connected to the Force, and yet she still had all these doubts of, like, oh, can I show
Mm.
uh can I show Imri my light whip, or what does that mean, and am I able to guide them right? So I really like a good story where the hero feels strong and powerful and steadfast, but there are still challenges, because that feels true to me.
Oh yeah, the stuff with the light whip was great. Of just you can't show it, and what does it mean? Yeah, no, you're so right. Yeah, and it's look, I've heard you say this about Ray before, and I'll added Vernesta to it of just like, "Ah, I'd like to grow up and be like her. Again, doesn't mean this isn't like a perfect, the belle of the ball, the quarterback of the team type of character that just she doesn't have that kind of arrogance or privilege attached to her, but she recognizes those parts of her, and she recognizes the need to continue to grow because she feels those fears, and it's very real as well. Every arc in here is real for these characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh,
Mhm.
for you, just as a person, does it help you to process individual challenges in life as if you think of them as this is your Jedi trial or this is your metamorphosis?
Yeah, I think when could take that time to do that, when you're in the middle of it, when you're Emery going, man, my master's dead and those folks over there did it, and it's hard to stop and go, oh, this is a trial. But that's the life works, right? And it's easy to look back, but it's important to look back. It's important to take those lessons and go forward. And I do look at a lot of things that are just chapters, and or I'll say a lot. Well, I got through that. And sometimes it's as easier. I had a big trial during the pandemic. You want to know what the trial was? I had to get my real ID, and it took a lot, and waiting in line and figuring it out. And COVID was just launching, and I wasn't sure. And here I'm, and I'm half joking a little bit, but I got through it. I just remember driving away going, I got through that. I did it. I didn't
Yeah.
think I'd get that done, but I did it. I got through that challenge.
Yeah, I think it can be really valuable to romanticize things. I think it can be dangerous too, but I think in general it can be something that makes you really understand what's going on in your own life, right? Because you could just see things as like, here is another struggle, here's another damn thing that I have to do, and what really? Oh, great! I just I maintained. I got this idea I need. Great. But if you add a little bit of that romance to it, of like, I am going to persevere, I will
Yeah.
pass my Jedi trial, I will accomplish metamorphosis. How? I'm going to eat a little less cheese and a little more vegetables today. I have completed my Jedi trial and have not fallen to the darkness of that
Yeah.
additional piece of Gouda. I had a salad. I am a Jedi.
Yeah.
Pulling some personal experience there. Uh, I think sometimes it doesn't always work, but sometimes I think it's really fun and powerful to add a little bit of that uh,
Mhm.
romance to the challenges you encounter.
And look, again, if you're 11 or 12 and you're reading this book, and on the off chance you're listening to our review, welcome to the party. But you're heading out to the real world, and it's a great. I think it's a great little skill to pick up, to look at it as that might help you not be as overwhelmed. And look, there's some problems that are overwhelming. That's part of the struggle. But you know what I mean? I think I wish I had some of that too, because I'm a quiet little kid who was a little overprotected. Little, that's an understatement. And so sometimes I feel as though, even, it was hard for me the very first day when I wanted to sign up for improv training in 1999. Like, I'd overcome a lot of things to pick up a phone and set up an audition time.
Yeah.
It was hard for me. I wasn't trained to do that. I didn't have those skills. I'm shy like my father. And if I just been able to approach it now, I'm 21, 22 at the time, of just like, this is today's challenge. And this book is like, I want every kid going in junior high to read it.
Yeah.
Should be a textbook.
A test of courage, your textbook. That is great.
You want to grow up.
A test of courage. Can you make that phone call? I also had to pass that Jedi trial at different points in my life. Can you make that phone call?
Yeah.
I did it. Want to move on to one of the other big ideas, and that is point of view. Obviously, this is a big Star Wars idea, big Star Wars theme, that everybody does have different points of view, and they can affect how you act based on what truths you cling to. Your perception determines your reality. Your focus determines your reality. But I thought it took an interesting kind of perspective on perspectives in this book, that the four main characters literally take turns advancing the narrative, that we are in chapter by chapter, we are in one of the four main characters' heads, seeing their experience of it, but it's never doubling back. It's always moving the story forward. And we see that each character has specific strengths and experiences that add to the value of the whole. So we get to experience their point of view, but we get to experience how it also contributes to literally getting them out of this trial, this crucible, this belly of the beast experience on the acid rain moon. So Vernestra is strong in the Force. She knows she's worked hard, had luck, and been supported.
Mhm.
She also has a light whip setting on her blade, which is pretty damn cool. But just her skill and her experience saves the group many times as this sort of a 16-year-old adult in the room. And then we
Yeah.
learn that Imri's power in the Force is about connection, sensing others' feelings. He helped save the group with that by allowing them to even find the moon Weevo to land on. And then, of course, Avon Staros is great with tech and science. She loves exploration. She's creative and prepared, so that saves them in lots of different ways, including having that probe droid that she packs and uses well. And then honesty, we see in some ways, for me, the strongest of this is how much he doubts himself, how much he doesn't want to be there. He's rigid. He likes familiarity, but then he has that just crystal clear epiphany of like, but I know something they don't. I've studied fieldcraft in preparation for my metamorphosis, and he helps find water by finding that fruit for the group. So it is kind of a structural thing that we get to experience different points of views through the kids, but then it's just a really nice straightforward lesson of, look, everybody has strengths. And we even, like I was saying before, get to see a little bit of that kind of trading of perspectives of Imri literally absorbing some of Honesty's anger and acting off of it. I love that Avon and Honesty kind of go back and forth with chaos versus planning. We get that great little passage from Honesty going, Avon's interesting and confident, but she is an agent of chaos and she frightens me. And then Honesty, along with Imri, are the one who actually do a chaotic, dangerous thing. So you get some perspectives that traded, and Vernestra feeling nervous about Imri seeing his blade seeing her blade while Imri is the one who's nervous about his blade. So some perspective trading there. So those are all the ideas that I picked up on. Did you have any thoughts on that general perspective?
The general thought is again, this needs to be a textbook, and the reason is I really connected, oddly enough, with honesty.
Okay.
Honestly, with honesty, I didn't mean that there. I hate puns. The reason is I am so much of a person that's like, help me, I'm outside of my routines, I don't know what to do, and also I don't want to be here, and also I think I know what I can add to the party, but I'm afraid to do it, and I have grown so much over the last 5 years, over the last 10 years, over the last 20 years of just being, again, I mentioned being overprotective. I'm not saying honesty was overprotected, but you talked about the kind of the rigidness of him and the strong culture he comes from. But I really looked at him of seeing kind of a bigger picture for the first time, a bigger world for the first time. Where Avon reminds me, Avon's such a great character, but she reminds me of someone who's maybe seen too much of the world already.
Right.
Nothing she could do about that, but brings in, and then of course just the base level of you got Jedi, you get different cultures that they're either from, whether they have strong memories of that or not, doesn't matter. They're there. They are who they are. But all that kind of, I looked at honesty all through the book, of just kind of quiet in the corner to me, just kind of like trying to figure out his place, and then being changed by it for better or worse, but hopefully in the end for the better. I connected with that, and that was another thing where the book really worked, of going to that base level of what you're talking about. It is sometimes as simple as I am science, well, I am a Jedi and spiritual, let's try to marry the two. There's all those kind of great concepts, and it just continued to work. And what you're describing, Joseph, of what they each brought to the table, perspective wise, to move everything forward piece by piece. That's another reason the story really worked, as this singular adventure with many complex parts.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about honesty. I think that honesty is this great addition to the Star Wars canon, in that, we want to have as many people be able to see themselves in Star Wars. And I think it's great for the kids who are like, camping? No, I don't want to do that. No,
Me,
being away from my parents? No, I don't want to do that. To get some representation in Star Wars,
yeah.
and then realize like, oh, I do. This is frightening and unpleasant, and there's cultural reasons for it, right? As we learn that the Dalna stay on their planet because the Nile have been torturing them for, it sounds like a long time. So they have reasons for it. But it's great then for him to say like, no, but there are some things and some perspectives to get from that, and I'll embrace that a little bit more. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I would say, and I really liked Vernestra's story, and I do, and there are parts of it that I relate to, but also especially as the book went on and we really got a picture of how much Imri had been teased for being gawky and laughed
Mhm.
at when he made a mistake, and that how much he loved his master Douglas because he didn't ever mock him for failing, just said, no, let's try again, in a friendly, helpful way. That really related to me, to some like deep,
Mm,
especially being like grade school age, where I was like very traditionally, conventionally teased, and mocked,
mm,
uh, and remembering the kind adults who were like, "It's fine, don't listen to them, try again." That
mhm,
really hit home for me.
mm. See, us graybeards can read these middle grade books and start crying with, "I finally, Justina Ireland sees me."
Yeah, thank you for the helping to walk through my own life adventures. What do you think is this strength of understanding someone else's perspective or skill set?
So the strength of learning to understand and the skills, perspectives, and knowing they exist, even is to me, follow me here, is kind of this. It takes the story off of you. And I'm talking about that story, meaning we are all the stars in our own TV show, right?
Right.
The movie about a boy, Hugh Grant, the Nick Hornby adaptation, really is great stuff about that. Of like, no, I'm in my own TV show. You might be a supporting character, but you're in mine, and how that can be. We want to. You need to make life an ensemble cast, I guess. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, just everything. And what that's what I mean is this knowing the value and the power and the importance and the reason for all these perspectives. It allows you to pay attention to the bigger picture. And when you run up against something that doesn't quite you don't understand yet or you're not sure about, if you have the story on you, that is easier to turn towards confusion, fear, anger, pride, ego, all those things Yoda usually talks about. And those all come out of you being first. And I'm not just talking about base level selfishness, but everyone in the story, I would not describe any one of these characters as selfish at all,
Mm-mm.
but young, but just Avon's the star of her story. And again, Avon's such a great character because she is kind of this agent of chaos, which is weird because she's this, person of science that's like charts and graphs type of person. Anyways, all that to say, I always take Star Wars into these real personal areas, and this book worked for me because, again, going back to where I was, like I hit the big city from a small town at 21, 22, and had so many different people around me that I'd never had before. And when I say different, I mean anything: race, creed, religion, whatever. I just was raised in a small town. And my instinct is to go egocentric. Well, I'm that my way's the right way, or what I view you is the truth, and it's not the truth. And I've just only gotten better and grown by acknowledging the power of other people's journeys and perspectives and skills, like you're saying. This is also could be this book could be used at a work conference here. So all to say, I know I'm kind of rambling, but
No.
um, and we all slip and have those moments of, what are you saying? I don't like that. I don't understand. That's not the way I do it.
Yeah.
We all slip up, but I think there's one of the big strengths of this book is going, yeah, we move forward from that. We work together, whether we know its importance or not. We have to.
Yeah, I think I love everything you're saying, and I think there is so much of that. For me, a need to acknowledge that we can't help it. We're in our own minds, we're in our own bodies. We are the main character of our shows,
Yeah.
but realizing that, but the person next to you also has a show, and it's just as important as your show, you know.
Yeah.
And having that empathy at all times, I think, being reminded to understand other people's perspectives, even if you're not always going to be in agreement with them, but understand that they have their own perspective for their own reason. It encourages empathy, and I think this book does a great job of just showing whether it is used as a textbook or as a team building exercise for a corporate getaway. You got a lot of great pitches for where to take this book. It just shows the both the practical and emotional value of trying to open up to the person next to you, right? Of there's
Yep.
literal skill set things of, we didn't realize that this person could do X. And if you're so afraid that you're going to be mocked if you let people see your skill,
Mhm.
because it might be wrong or different, then you're not going to be able to help that person. So,
Mhm.
just realizing that, hey, if we feel safe with one another, then we can actually help one another. It's a value. And then even just like with emotions, right? Of they all have trauma, either that they've experienced right now. Well, they've all experienced the trauma of Steady Wing blowing up, but you know, Honesty and Imri just lost these parental figures, but they
Yeah.
don't know that Avon has also gone through horrific trauma until they get comfortable enough to open up and find out that they have, uh,
Mm.
more in common, which, that sounds so simple sometimes. But I think it's just, I think the thing that I'm working towards is trying to have empathy for others is not, I'll, I'll
Yeah.
just tolerate your dumb view. Every once in a
Hmm.
while, maybe you feel that way, and that's fine. But it is possibly it will benefit you if you can open up to somebody else's view.
Yeah, yeah, and and a good. I think through this process, you also get to know yourself. You get to know what you believe and what lines you don't cross, and all those kind of things are there as well. And we're speaking in general terms and specific terms, but I think every one of these characters, by the end of this journey, knows more about themselves and knows who they are and what they believe. And a lot of that came by this shared journey, and none of them would have survived on their own, right? Like
Yeah,
Vanessa maybe would have the best shot. All right, she was 2-1 favors odds in Vegas. All right, but they all need each other, and that truly is life. This is not a Springsteen Jeep commercial, but you know what I mean.
agreed.
I love seeing it on a smaller level like this. It worked for me.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think that is often the great story of Star Wars is that characters like the Jedi who have a perspective that we are all individuals, but we are all connected. They absolutely want to work towards empathy and nonviolence, but they also have moments of like, oh, but that's not cool. What you're about to do, even though I understand why you're doing it,
Mhm.
the violence you're about to do is not cool, and so I'll try to defend. Like so, it isn't just a ignore everything, everybody get along. It's
Yeah.
easy to, I think, overlap those conversations, but that's what I like about Star Wars is it struggles with uh,
Mhm.
absolutely lead with empathy, but still be proactive when something that you believe is truly wrong is happening. Uh,
Mhm.
great thoughts. If you were stranded on a moon, Ken, with acid rain, what skill would you bring to the group?
Staying in the cave and no one to stay in the cave. Don't go outside. That's acid rain. Um,
You would be the weather forecaster.
Though the truth is though, I love rain so much, and I'm known even to this day of Grace will be like, "What are you doing?" I'm just standing outside in the rain. Well, have an umbrella. Well, then I won't get wet. I love standing in the rain, walking in the rain, playing in the rain. My old security jobs, I used to go on the roofs, and I'll be like, I'm going to go check for. I was the director of. I could have stayed in my office all day. No one would have asked me to go outside in the rain. I was like, let me grab a raincoat. I'm going to go check for leaks on the roofs, and the management would be like, there's no leaks. I'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to go up. So I do love rain. I would have got caught in rain in this story.
Okay, so you would have been a cautionary tale. That's how you would have
Yes, yes, but I would have
helped
been like,
out.
stay in the cave, stay in the cave.
Stay in the cave. Stay in the cave. Yeah, I think maybe I would have struggled to toward possibly annoying motivational speaker. I think I could have helped with that. I'm like, look, I don't have any of the skills to help us, but I know you three do, and I'm gonna keep you happy and pumped and excited. Are you ready, team? I think that's what I could
Mhm.
contribute.
That's good. That's good.
All right, we're going to move on to this last sort of big picture idea that I perceived in the book, which I think is the idea that really adds a lot of depth. Everything we've been talking about, obviously, we love, but to me, this was a lot of the depth came from this, and it is actively accepting loss. There's active death in this book. And also a little bit more exploration of the will of the Force and the different Jedi characters' sort of relationship to that. So, multiple characters wrestle with why the tragedy had to happen and how to move forward, specifically with the steady wing blowing up and all those people being killed, them narrowly escaping, but specifically Honesty's father and Jedi Douglas Sunvale. This is a quote from page 57, Avon Staros thinking through the tragedy. And it says, Avon's heart clenched at the knowledge Master Douglas was gone forever. If the Force really was guiding everything, how could good people like Master Douglas die so stupidly? Got so
Mhm.
excited when that popped up. It's like, okay, is this a just a passing thing, or is the book going to wrestle with this perspective a little bit more? And it really ended up doing that. Imri has a couple different things to say on this topic, but in particular, when the sort of fever of the dark side breaks, it's partially because he remembers or maybe hears Douglas, his master, speaking to him. This is on page 207. And he says, "To be a Jedi is to always trust that the Force works in mysterious ways, Emery. We accept and try our best, but we do not forget that in the end, all is as the Force wills it." I feel like this is reflected two other places as well, many other places, but two I wanted to highlight. Page 110, this is just more of a practical thing, is that Avon has been leading them down this difficult path, literally through the acid rain moon.
Mm,
And Avon says, following this path across the floodplain allowed us all to realize that the only correct path was the least desirable one.
mhm,
I think about that every day of my life. And then
mm,
wanted to highlight the kind of the end beat of this story on page 225 when Vernestra has taken Imri as her Padawan, and they are reflecting on that the Nile are responsible for the destruction of the Steady Wing and kind of how awful it is. And Vernestra says to Imri, "I think we have seen only the least of what they, meaning the Nile, are capable of. But don't worry, we're Jedi. We'll be ready when next they strike." So,
mm.
Ken, feel free to take this kind of however you want, wherever you want. What is powerful to you about this discussion of the Jedi's relationship to the will of the Force?
There's some great stuff, and I failed to write them down this time. I apologize to you and all the listeners, but there was some great, along with our favorite Qui-Gon quote, we kind of either get exactly right or paraphrase of "turn towards the light because the light is there." There were some real good plays on that too, and so far 2 for 2. High Republic books, comics as well, but High Republic books have really been allowed to look at what it means to be a Jedi and the relationship to the Force and destiny and will, all these things that we love talking about here. So, accepting loss is your big theme here, and how that will of the Force. You talk earlier about chapters, seasons of change, and I always say part of that loss isn't just death. That's probably perhaps the biggest one, but a changing of a job, a changing of a scenario. All 4 of these characters cannot go back to and change anything that's happened before. They must, and not that some of those is death. Some of those are little things, interpersonal relationships. While they're even being here, I think honesty might have those questions, and you must accept that loss, and how that loss, to me, putting it on the shoulders of the will of the Force can either be a cop out or it can be an accepting of just you have to go forward. You have to go forward, and you're going to learn from it. You're going to survive, and you'll get through that trauma. And I think even on a simple like for me, graduating from 8th to ninth grade was a trauma. you know,
Yes, it was.
and having to go, you can't go back again is something you hear a lot in your life, but you can go forward, and to see it like that is part of what I think this book talks about here, along with the big things. Again, a lot of trauma. The stuff you highlighted with Avon and her mother, and what she went through, um, and then just the ramifications of the death. But even for me, there's a little bit of with Vernestra showing that she has a light whip is kind of this almost letting your inner light shine. Right, to me, that took a lot of. She can never go back. That it is now known who she is, and her skills are now known, and that's even kind of a loss of what was before. And
Mm.
now you are out and about, and you are proud. Again, I talk about how a lot of this book is about finding out who you are, and a lot of it is growing and accepting those around you, or working with those around you, or trying to understand those around you. But it's also going, this is who I am. And I think Vernestra, a light whip is something so cool. Everyone wants a light whip to show back up in Star Wars, and it's been in all these legends and video games, and all those kind of, and here it is. And instead, it wasn't like, look at this light whip, and everyone goes, it was, oh gosh, I can't let anyone know that I have this.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's okay, and I can cite examples of where it was used, but there's a confusion around this. Oh, you have a light whip? Don't the Night Sisters use that? Are you a Night Sister? I think that's part of when I hear the term loss in life, and it is moving forward, and looking at it as that, and that's part of what I felt from this book as he wrestled with the philosophy of, I don't know, will of the Force.
Yeah. I think that's all sorts of great stuff. And yeah, this book is explicit about this is immediate sudden loss that at first seems random and chaotic, and then we learn is just absolute cruelty from the Nile, right? Of just
Mhm.
we want to control this sector of space, so we're just going to murder these innocent people, and we're going to track down these children, and we're going to murder them too, these teens. And I love the honesty that Avon is willing to just go like, how could how can they find a way to be okay with something so dumb when somebody as awesome as Master Douglas died?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really powerful to let it be that difficult. But I love what you're saying too about accepting loss in is just the immediate too of one moment from the next. Or for
Mm-hmm.
Vernestra will never not be somebody who has a light whip. It's such a great perspective. Imri, no matter what he does for himself, he will always have gone dark that day,
Mm-hmm.
even if he never turns back. Even if he doesn't particularly learn a ton from it, even it's just a part of who he is now, and
Yeah.
accepting that always in motion is everything,
Yeah.
is really great. I think, there's a lot to dig into with the cosmic force versus the living force. And you and I discuss that our perception that we enjoy on this podcast, that maybe other people have a different take, is that a lot of the talk of destiny in Star Wars is that the will of the force is moving you towards a conflict that is essential to who you are. And so you can't avoid it. Luke Skywalker has to face his father.
Mm-hmm.
Rey has to decide what to do with her power because she has all that power, and eventually she's gonna have to decide. Other people, can view it a different way. And this book, I think, really wrestles with, um, great. We need to learn to accept loss. We need to find a way to move forward, but can we trust this idea that how do we accept that bad things happen? How do we make that a part of this philosophy? If we are really having this moment of faith that everything is happening the way it was supposed to happen, how do we wrestle with something really awful happening? And I what I really liked about the book is I felt like it was throwing that big picture idea out there that is super important. And obviously everyone can have their own relationship to that because it's a really big idea that touches really important real world stuff. But I really liked that the book was not shy of kind of raising that question and seeing the different ways that characters grappled with it. And what I liked about it is that embracing the will of the force for these characters did feel to me like it meant accepting that bad things happen, that
Mm-hmm.
there are some things that are out of your control. There was nothing that they could have done to stop. They didn't fail. There's nothing they could have done to stop the destruction of the steady wing. So there's a real acceptance that there are some things in the tapestry of life and the tapestry of the force that are out of your control. And you need to accept that so you can move forward. Um, Accepting that everything is connected, and even sometimes horrible things can lead to good things seems like a lesson that they are focusing on, of like, well, you made that mistake, but maybe you will learn from it, like with Imri's uh, horrible moment of going to the dark side. But what I really like about it, and why I kind of wanted to highlight that quote at the end of Vernestra saying to Imri, we're Jedi, we'll be ready when next they strike. I like that at no point do our Jedi characters remove their personal agency. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Jedi often say, I'm meditating on what the will of the Force is. I'm trying to follow the will of the Force. But that is always in this great concert with personal agency and the perspective that the Jedi are not just observers, but they are active participants. And you can get into, sort of semantics of, well, are they choosing that, or is the Force choosing that for them? That's a great big discussion. But what I really like is this book is accepting that a horrific, unnecessary, cruel tragedy happened and these people lost loved ones. And the way that at the end of the book, Vernestra is responding to it when she's talking to her Padawan is, we will be ready to respond to the next crisis. So it's accepting it and moving forward and saying we're still going to be proactive and try to stop anything like that from happening again.
Yeah, I mean, it's spiritual stuff, and the Jedi that it's always been spiritual stuff, and you can take that and apply it to your own life if you want. I was looking back on page 56. You put that great quote on 57, and Avon has another. There's no logical explanation for this, and that was what Avon hated the most.
Mm.
And so to tie it into what you're saying with Vernestra, like you could focus on not being able to comprehend it, and that's very realistic. And what's that word? Hate shows up there, and how that can stew, and how that can grow, and how that can fester. When hopefully by the end of this book, what I take a little bit what you're highlighting here, Vanessa saying, is we got through it, we grew, we're better for it, and we don't have to just sit back and accept those bad things if we can change it. We're Jedi, and balance. There's to talk about balance in this book. A little
Hmm.
bit of that pops up and there's also the force doesn't choose sides. That quote, I might be paraphrasing a little bit. It all kind of goes into this theme of accepting loss and will of the force for me. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try to, but yeah, sorry, I trailed off. So I'm trying to think of where that quote was. I knew I should have written it down.
There's a lot of great ones, and I think again that's to me what is really powerful about it is it does offer lots of food for thought, and as we often do on Force Center, particularly when we're talking about really big ideas that can really impact. You're saying the word spiritual, Ken. I think that's exactly right. We are sharing our thoughts and our observations, and we recognize that there are many different thoughts and observations and feelings to have about this big picture idea of will of the force and how it relates to the real world. So just want to emphasize that we are sharing our perspectives and respect that there are others out there, even in this book. uh,
Yeah.
what do you think about Imri's fall to the dark side? Do you think it was about the inability to process the loss of his master? Was that the key thing that broke him, or do you feel like it was something else?
I think there might have been things leading up to that. And again, yeah, we talk about the choices, and Vernestra tells him, later on, recognizing our mistakes and doing better is the path of the Jedi. And so he made a mistake, I think, in accepting that. But it's an okay mistake for me. I can only imagine that Justina Ireland was writing about not just her own loss, but all trying to tap into all of us and the loss we experience. But I think it comes from other areas, and the idea of just saying, Douglas is dead. Well, it's weird. It's the will of the force. That can be incorrect. That can lead to the inability to process it. So yeah, I think it's easy to say, well, that happened because you just didn't know how to deal with it. We all don't know how to deal with it. We're all the Jedi trying to hope that we can do better the next time. There's this thing here, Master Douglas had urged Emery to get better at talking to people, not just to suss out what was happening by way of the Force. Um,
Mm.
but Emery couldn't help it, most especially when everything but the Force felt chaotic and wrong. Um, and so what that showed me is Emery being young, and especially when you got all those hormones are coursing through your veins and all those kind of things. And I'm trying to go back to junior high, early high school. We're talking about the big the will of force stuff, and Emery is plugged into that. He's so good at feeling and connecting, and he even takes honesty's anger. So for him to believe that everything but the force felt chaotic and wrong, to me, is such a there's the inability to process it. Uh, Simply getting up or going outside, me having to make that phone call, it's just chaotic and wrong. I don't know. The only thing I know is the force. The force seems calm. I don't know. That was key that Master Douglas knew that about Emery.
That's
That
such a great, yeah. That's
yeah,
a
yeah. That
great pull.
you didn't need to just study the books here. This is a little bit of Yoda. You need better at talking to people. Be part of this galaxy. We're Jedi. We're out here. We're out here to help. You got to know the people are helping. You got to know yourself, and not just constantly looking up to something that might be even hard to explain. The Force,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and
that ties into it.
yeah, like living in what you are good at, but not maybe everybody is good at living there. You have to be out in the world. Um,
Yeah, and so when the Force does something that seems just as chaotic and wrong as the real world you don't understand, you're knocked off your foundations there. And Emery was knocked off his foundation, understandably. Again, no fingers pointed at him, which is why I love the ending with Vanessa and him. But like, you know what I mean? So yes, I think in the end, it's simple to say his inability to process, but that's what I was trying to get at. It's the whole picture of what he couldn't grasp.
yeah, that's such a great pull because in a way it is Douglas giving him the advice that he needed. I love that this book is seeded with the advice that Imri needed but couldn't take, because that feels more honest. Of like, that is the challenge in real life, is we often know we have the wisdom we need to not make bad choices, but our emotions pull us to not listen to that wisdom. And in specific, if Imri had talked to honesty instead of just feeling honesty's anger, I love that honesty did feel that anger, did feel like it would be easier to be angry because then I would feel in control instead of feeling sad, which I'm ashamed of honesty's, thinking. And Imri just sucks up that emotion. But if he had spoken to honesty, honesty was really reticent about actually acting on the anger. And if he had spoken to him, honesty would have probably said, I don't know if we should go after them in the middle of the night
Yeah.
alone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that his brief break to the dark side is, I think it is about an inability to process that loss. I think everything you're saying is great, but I love how much it is tied up into just kind of real world things of, obviously he feels the pain and the anger and the pull toward vengeance, and I'm not going to let the galaxy be chaotic. I'm going to enforce my order on it, of those people killed my master, I'm going to kill them. But there's also this, Douglas was the one who made Imri feel accepted, and
Mm-hmm.
Imri is stewing so much with feeling like he's never going to be good enough. He's jealous of how talented Vernestra is, and now that one person who was a balm to those emotions is gone, in that fear that that person who used to make me feel okay about my insecurities is gone. So now I have to live with my insecurities. No, instead I'll attack. That was
Mm-hmm.
painfully real and relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. So very, this book, so very real. Like I flash it back to 8th grade at night. So real.
Yeah. Yeah. Just what would you rather do? Deal with your insecurities or lash out? And almost the entire world is like, I would like to lash out, please. Like, that's the challenge,
Yeah, you're right. I asked myself that question and said, I'm going to become a comic.
A specific form of lashing out, if nobody has ever been to a really long open mic night. Any other big picture ideas or themes that you wanted to discuss?
I mean, we hit on a lot. I'm not just trying to skate over that, but yeah, we hit on a lot. No, a lot of it was there, and it ties well into some of the stuff going on with the High Republic and Chancellor, what's her name, Rose. So
Yeah, Lena.
I'm learning all the High Republic names still.
There's a lot.
Ties to the big picture. So yeah, that's all there. We can discuss it if we need.
Yeah, you already mentioned it and found some great quotes for the other theme that I think is really, really present in the whole High Republic, and is there in Light of the Jedi. And I think it is the conflict between the Nile and the Jedi, is the conflict between order and chaos, and the feeling that, the belief in the will of the Force, that there is a pattern and a texture to everything, where we are all contained, we're all connected, not contained, but connected. And the Force makes sense to Jedi and they can see its movements, and then the Nile just want to rip that apart with just sudden chaos and violence. And the fact that these teens are wrestling with it in the same way that the adult Jedi are wrestling with it is really powerful.
Yeah.
So we already mentioned in that big discussion of ideas, moments we enjoyed, but I wanted to be sure to ask you if there were some other moments that you particularly enjoyed. I got a couple, but I want to hear yours first.
For some reason, I really enjoyed J6 pulling out all the blasters, because I wasn't expecting that.
Right, because there was so much about like, she's really evolved. She's really changed. She's still a bodyguard droid.
Yeah. A lot of stuff there. There's a ton of, too many to list on Avon Staros. Wonderful character. And just, there's a precocious young genius vibe there. She's 11 and she's kind of already, well, let me tell you how this goes here. But also, again, a lot of that comes from, I think, being unfortunately at times pushed out into the real world too soon. You mentioned the kidnapping, all that kind of stuff. But just a lot of funny moments. A lot of my kind of laughter from the dialogue came from her and her moments there. And like a lot of the planet, I always go, it reminds, there's a good tradition in Star Wars of, just because it's a good tradition in storytelling, of on a weird planet with dangers, and that's where you really learn a lot about yourself. Mando, the great Rebels episode with Callus and Zev, The movie Enemy Mine, which might as well be Star Wars from the 80s. Of you're stuck there and you got to work with those around you. A lot of that was there. So just a lot of fun moments of exploration mixed in with that as well, including I love the holding the leaves above their head to block out the rain with the force.
Yeah, the force umbrellas for acid
Mhm.
rain that's pretty
Yeah,
great.
I need that.
Uh, yeah, there for me there were a couple of just like funny moments. I liked the observation that J6 was taking a deep sigh, even though the droid didn't need to breathe, which was quite impressive.
Yes. Yes.
Very relatable. I like this very also real world in a good way. Of I love the through line of Avon being after that lightsaber and wanting to study kyber crystals. In this particular line on page 131 of Imri laughed a little. A Jedi's lightsaber is very personal. It's kind of like asking to borrow someone's underclothes. I thought
Mhm.
that was super
Mhm.
funny. We talked a lot about there's a lot of great, dark side thoughts. Anger is fine, but acting solely on it is the dark side. Acting on it, I thought that was great. Man, did I love the description of Douglas Sunvale.
Yeah.
Tall and effusive, pale and unkempt beard, prefers plain robes. His fancy tabard that he had to wear is wrinkled. I love a sloppy Jedi, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, you're a well kept man. Are you seeing yourself seen though a little bit here? Is this
Ooh.
on a Friday?
Yeah, I create a good illusion of being of being well kept, but there's a constant battle in my soul between clean and sloppy often wins.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and it's just like he's portrayed as such a lovable, kind uh, person who's like, I really care about people and ideas, and I forgot my holster for my lightsaber. Do I really need it? Come on, that's not my focus.
Mm,
It's it's kind of a fun, jokey thing of a sloppy Jedi, but there's also just some like truth and heart to it that I find really beautiful.
mhm,
Last thing for me is this. I think you were referencing it earlier. Uh, a thing where Renestra's not being entirely honest
mm,
with Avon when she was reflecting on how Imri had tried to move the rock, but he had failed and lost control of it. So she had to give it that big push, and then it crashed into the pirates, and that's what stranded them on Wevo and allowed them to find out what was actually going on. And she has this thought that the force naturally bent toward justice while in balance, and those pirates would have gotten away with their misdeeds if it hadn't been for that giant rock destroying half their ship.
mm,
I just thought that was a really interesting, sometimes we can take a thing that we read in a Star Wars book as like, that's how the Force works. And I always try to remember, like, that's how this Jedi thinks the Force works.
mhm,
But I really liked that was Vernestra's view of like, when it's in balance, the Force naturally has good things happen or things that bend toward justice.
mhm.
I thought
No,
that was really cool.
I love that moment. I was gonna one of those another quote I didn't write down. It was a weird weekend. No, because it goes to the Last Jedi speech of Luke, and the balance in the Force is a great podcast topic. It's a great think piece to write about. It's something to debate. But I like what you said. It could be also down to the individual perspective, but also there's a through line, and the through line is when darkness rises, light will meet it, because when the dark side is used to snuff out the light, that's when it's imbalance. And so this is just a real simple way to look at it for me.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that feeling that connection that Jedi seem to have to intuition. That's a fun thing to think about. Of was that utter happenstance, or was there something deep in her core where she pushed it at that angle because on some deep intuitive level through the Force she sensed I got some pirates to smash.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a fun thing to think about and wrestle with. Speaking of things we wrestled with, was there anything in this book that just didn't work for you on a subjective level, or that you got hung up on wondering or questioning?
No, I was really trying to clue in myself to all the just the big deep philosophies and the Jedi stuff, and it all is pretty consistent with what's presented in Star Wars, and it's specifically modern Star Wars, which I think ties directly to not just the movies, but like conversations George Lucas has had.
Yes.
I don't think they move they don't move too far from that. And this, so I didn't wrestle with anything, but I was ready to. I'm always ready to when someone says, "Well, this is the Force says that we Jedi must," and this book had a lot of that. But you and I have just discussed them. Clearly, I'm not questioning them anymore, and didn't. But I was ready to. You're ready to like check it, like put it up against a board. Does this we tie that string? Does it go? And it all works. And well done. And the High Republic 2 novels in so far. It's 200 years prior, but they're written now, meaning now in 2019, 2021. And there's a very modern style to the presentation of the characters, whether it be dialogue and everything. And I haven't had a problem with it yet. But you and I think sometimes, and a lot of Star Wars fans, we can clue into that. I always go to the big ass door thing. Did we want Poe to say that? Let's do a 12-part series. And both these books so far are very modern in their presentation, but it's working for me. I don't need it to feel like what was 200 years ago for the Jedi. Are they saying thee and becometh? I don't need that. I don't think. Anyway,
I am thankful not. No, I really agree with you. I think one of the big triumphs of this era so far is it is extremely clear that everyone involved, from all of these great writers to the story group to, I think Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni and everybody, it really does feel like if we're going to tell the big epic tale of when the Jedi were at their height, we need to know what that means. And that means having a real handle on big picture Force philosophy. Of course, it's going to differ a little bit from Jedi to Jedi. We're going to, present some different points of view, but, how the dark side works. What is the light and why do you go toward it? Some of those real big picture philosophy stuff, they feel really locked in what Lucas created. And you can find some great interviews where he spells it out pretty clearly. And it feels like you are absolutely right that this whole era is attuned to that. Well, also, having fun, different perspectives and questioning, but it's attuned to the absolute heart of the Force and the value of the light.
Indeed.
The only thing for me was great because it was something I was struggling with at the first half of the book, and then it went away. I think we're in a difficult era at this point with so many fun, quirky droids that sometimes they can feel like they're not breaking new ground. And at first I was like, I feel like I've seen J6 before. But when it got to about halfway through and J6 was having that moody teen moment where like, I'm also thinking things and I won't tell you what they are. Like that was great because that really tied this droid to that idea of coming of age, and it made me really, really like the droid by the end of the book.
Love it. Yeah, good droid. And yeah, well, we'll talk about canon connections here.
Okay, excellent. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for the second half, a shorter half since we've already gone a while on some of the great action moments and the canon and the lore and all that. We'll be right back.
Hey, Force Center friends, make sure you're keeping up to date on all the great content from Jennifer Landa. Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, you whippersnappers, Force Center's own Jennifer Landa continues to bring you fun, informative, and insightful laughs and moments.
Also, Jennifer brings her experience and perspective as a Star Wars-loving mother to her DIY projects, blogs, and more, so be sure to head on over to jennylanda.com, that's JENILANDA.com, for articles like how to make your own Darth Maul sneakers or 10 unique Star Wars baby gift ideas.
Follow Jen on Twitter and Instagram at Jennifer Landa and on TikTok as Jennifer Landa 1138.
And we are back to finish our discussion of A Test of Courage, the Great High Republic book by Justina Ireland. We always like to talk favorite action moments in these books. There wasn't, I would say, as much sort of like, it's a duel, like combat, but there was a lot of force use and a lot of big action, exciting moments. So, Ken, for you, what were some of your faves?
I mean, again, I'd like to submit the umbrella leaves as an action. It wasn't.
Yeah, I'll take it.
It was a choice. They exerted power and energy to do that. I actually did love the lightsaber fight. I'm glad you pointed out that it was kind of it was quick. It was served its purpose, and they didn't dwell on it. And I think your themes and lessons behind that fight were well said. I did like the moment, and again, I'm a light whip. I remember, was it the Bane, one of the characters in the Bane novel, because I've only read the first one. I apologize, everyone. It as a light whip, right? I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. Like, let's just have different versions of lightsabers, but I'm not a huge fan of it. And this time when it showed up, so I was like, oh, here we go. Am I going to list this and things I questioned and wrestled with? But no, it worked really well, and I love what it represented as well. So I like that scene. But the other one, I hate to see you listed as an action moment. The destruction of the steady wind was very cinematic. And talk about Douglas, and you love Douglas already. I thought his sacrifice was really big to me. Like it felt Star Wars big, and part of the history of these characters now going forward.
It was really well written, with just the feeling that shoved to the chest, and just kind of seeing him through the doorway of just like, no, kids, get over there, it's safe, and then the door clamps down. Is like, it's heroic but also sudden and sad. It was really well done.
Yeah. So I hate to champion that as an action moment, but it was pretty action packed. So.
It is an action moment. Yeah. I had two that I really gravitated toward. That whole fight with Vern, when she springs into action and realizes, like, I am not killing these pirates, but they are a risk, and I am not hurting Imri to the best of my ability, but he needs to be stopped. And, it is fun to just see from her perspective. It's just like just threw him extremely far over the ship into the
oh yeah.
And there's no, it's not that I don't love cinematic action. There isn't any like, I wound up and it's just, it has to happen, so I did it. And I love that. And also just knowing, we didn't really super concentrate on the light whip. We just knew it was happening. And I think in particular of, it's clear that her blade is a blade because she's blocking blows. And then Imri just feels a cut to his hand, and that's the whip, that the whip has come out, right?
Yeah.
And the whip cutting his blade in half. It is taking something like a light whip, which could, devolve into a weird kind of power fantasy weapon, right? And be celebrated. Is Vernestra fearing is like this super nasty thing, but to just to feel Vernestra embrace it as, this is a tool to efficiently end the combat. Just the lightsaber's cut in half. You're not fighting anymore, Imri.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really cool. So yeah, I loved it in terms of just the Star Wars action. I loved seeing it in a different perspective. The other moment I loved is Vernestra and Imri using the Force to push debris away from the shuttle. I love seeing all of the uses of Force for knowledge and defense. But in particular, there's some passages on page 80, 81. Didn't write them all down, but about Vernestra being exhausted from Force use. This is paraphrasing, but you need to take care of your crude matter. I love seeing that expressed because, I've talked with different people, intense Star Wars fans, casual Star Wars fans, where sometimes like, well, why didn't this person do this with the Force then? And this is the way I've always liked it, of like, the Force is an endless power that you have to channel through your weak mortal body, and that is exhausting, and you can only do so much at a time. Even Yoda, who is proving that anything is possible, when he lifts the X-Wing, he's not like flips the finger and then walks away. He's there and he's steady and he's concentrating. And I love it when the Jedi get to be as powerful as their imaginations, but they are still limited by where they choose to use that energy.
I love that. It's almost a separate conversation. Maybe we will do the Powers of the Force Center episode. I think entire generations of fans have forgot that Yoda slumps back tired and exhausted. Yeah. I really think so. And it's so you want to jam on that X button to use your super force powers in the video game of life. Like, you forget that Yoda's like, oh, yeah, I did it, but I'm going to need a snack. Hold on.
Yeah, I need to make more stew. Yeah, for sure. So some absolutely great action moments with great thoughts on Star Wars action. Let's move on to some of the kind of canon lore moments or ideas. This is not a complete list. I try to jot things down that I think are interesting as I roll through. So this is something that we've discussed recently. I think we had a great question on the News and Cues episode about Jedi trials, and I love that this book was just explicit. Sure, there are other places in canon as well, but this one jumped out to me that trials are all different for Jedi. Do you like that idea that the trials are a set thing, but what the trials are depend on who you are and what you need to work on?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And you know, I almost wonder because even the first issue of the High Republic comic touches on this as well.
Yeah.
I always wonder if is it almost a running joke of like, are you ready for the trials? And then no one ever gets to the trials because the trials are what you face out and about. And I just love this idea. You know, will we get it one day? Will the textbook emerge of here are the trials? It involves, you know, it's actually the Jedi Temple challenge. It's a video. It's a game show. But I love that because that's just life. You know, and I love that.
Yeah, I love the idea that even if there are sort of codified, here's you got to solve this puzzle and slide down this rope. That even
Yeah.
if it's that, it's still like, yeah, but if you're afraid of snakes, the rope is going to be made of snakes. You know, kind of
Yeah.
specificity is so great between that master Padawan relationship.
I just sorry. I just would love it. It's just a lie perpetuated by every master, and it's a secret you get to pass on to your Padawan. Oh, you ready for trials? Ooh, get ready to duck. But really, it's about what you're going to face at lunch.
Yeah, like spoilers for that first High Republic issue of the High Republic comic, and then there's the High Republic Adventures comic. But the first issue of the High Republic comic, it does totally have that vibe of Jedi trials, almost as like gotcha camera shows, right?
Mhm.
Of like we've installed a hidden camera and we've told Kiev that this is her Jedi trial, but her Jedi trial is actually this.
Yeah.
It's a really funny idea.
Mhm.
I love that Avon wants to study kyber crystals and has a theory that you could use them for other things. And then by
Yeah.
the end, in what I feel like should probably have some ramifications, steals Emery's broken, cut in half, whipped in half lightsaber blade. Uh,
Mhm.
I just love the intersection of the science and the mystical there. That
Mhm.
Avon's a really brilliant person who for her, science isn't a list; it's a let me break things and see what I can learn by how they shatter kind of scientist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's a great intersection between the science and the mystical, and it has this connection, I think, to like Galen and Lyra Urso. That Galen's like a scientist of kyber crystals, and Lyra was like a collector who understood them on a more spiritual level. What did you
Yeah.
take from Avon wanting to study kyber crystals?
I'm not saying it's anything nefarious or suddenly Avon is the dark scientist for the Sith that we all wanted. No, you know, I think it's really interesting. I love that, and I love that we are in a time period 200 years prior where you know Bacta is being manufactured and developed and tested, and all these things that we just know in Star Wars or come to know in Star Wars, especially in the modern era, where I think kyber crystals coming out of the Clone Wars animated series are a little more in focus and I was intrigued by that. I'd love to see where that goes. You know,
Yeah, I'm
just
really curious to see where they take it in the High Republic era, and even if it doesn't really go anywhere, I love that there is
yeah,
a logical curiosity of the Jedi are all walking around with
oh yeah,
this mystical power source. Of course, scientists are want to go. What else can we do with that?
yeah. And I don't need it to necessarily be, but like you know, maybe next book she meets the great grandfather of Orson Krennic. You know, Bob Krennic. He's a young scientist. Like, hey, do those crystals do something? Yeah, I'd love that, but I also don't need that. But because you're right, because it inspires that kind of headcanon almost.
Right. Hey, Bob Krennic, I think we could torture these to make a big laser. Great. Yeah. I don't think
Yes.
we'll necessarily see that. We get this little bit of canon about the Mirlans, the culture that they rejoice at a young one being chosen as a Jedi. And I like that that's a moment that Vernestra reflects on the luck that she's had, that she comes from a culture who is entirely supportive of her going off to the Jedi Temple and are, think of her as a lucky one, a hero in their culture because she is touched by the Force and gets to be a Jedi. What did you think of that cultural
I
idea?
I think it's great because it's a little justice for the Jedi for me because sometimes you can you know the way they recruit can be questioned and I understand that. But to have this group of fine folks being like, yeah, Jedi. Just kind of reaffirmed my faith in the Jedi a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Justice for the Jedi. And it also just makes me want like more. I want to know how all the different cultures
Yeah.
feel about it. If some of them are like, well, we don't like it, but we accept it. Or, if some of them are like, great, but you got to give me money, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of different approaches. Scrolling through to find the ones that I think are juiciest. Night Sisters use light whips. Obviously, that is from Legends, but that it was great for me to get kind of firm confirmation that in this canon, Night Sisters are known in the High Republic and probably even older times. That means. How did you feel about that?
I can't wait till Leslie Headland has some light whips and Acolyte.
Yeah. And in fact, going along with that, there's this great moment on page 129 where it says Night Sisters and Guardians of Javin found something of value in the chaotic, destructive side of the Force. I love that. Not just the hearing the Night Sisters again and more about them, but Guardians of Javin. I didn't look at that up if that's a Legends thing or new. But for me, it's like, yep, I want there to be many things like the Night Sisters where other people besides the Jedi and the Sith are going to have views of the Force. And I'm happy to have more of those in canon. And I also like this. Yeah, it's not like the Night Sisters were like Sith who stayed at home. It's that they found something valuable in the dark side, which is different than they gave themselves entirely to it and worship anger,
Mm-hmm. Ooh, well said on that. And our pal Alex over Star Wars Explained, as always, put this video out about the connections and his notes, and he had another guy write it for him this time. He gives him credit in the video. Check it out. Javin is not new. It's something that's been out there before, Legends or otherwise, but the Guardians of Javin, brand new. So we're going to get more of that.
Ooh, excellent. One of the most exciting for me, Ken, another mention of the Sith Wars. In particular, testimonies of Serval the Uncanny say Jedi used light whips to defend against the Sith Lords who used forbidden forms. A lot of times we talk about Old Republic in general terms, and, for some people that really means a specific thing. We've got a couple mentions specifically of the Sith Wars, the big war between the Jedi and the Sith that led to the formation of the Republic that we know. And I just, man, I really like this specifying that, the war,
Yeah. Hey, look, fire up the converters and make some movies. Let's do it, kids. I'm ready for it. And by the way, Serval the Uncanny was great in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He was great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will see. I would love that. I would love them to do a trilogy about the Sith Wars. But if not, it seems like, hey, this High Republic thing goes well. This is what the publishing arm is going to do next. The Sith Wars specifically. Those are some of the kind of the big meteor ones, and then there is a lot of just fun little canon mentions. Nuna jerky rations. That was nice to know that happens to Nuna. I like the lyric Schmeierland's Almanac that he started 300 years ago. He never returned, but messenger droids do. That did feel like straight up out of like Hitchhiker's Guide. That almost like Schmeierland's Almanac was Hitchhiker's Guide.
I love that. Yeah.
I like the mention of the Sand Ghost on Pisana. It's always fun to see things from sequel trilogy being referenced in different timelines. But I also like that it's called the Forbidden Desert of Pisana. Yeah. So hearing that there's something called a Sand Ghost there allegedly adds to that. What's forbidden about it? When Imri is being upset about not being able to become a full Jedi, he believes, and one of the things he mentions is not getting to take the pilgrimage to Jeddah, which is cool. And then the last one that I believe was the droid used Batu knots to tie up the pirates, which was a little advertisement for, going to that park and I guess learning how to tie up pirates.
Well, you can get Nuna jerky out there at Batu, right? As well. I didn't get a chance to eat much food the day I was there. It was pouring rain and I was drunk at 10 a.m. Thanks to an early reservation at that bar there. But yeah, I think it's out there.
Okay. I was too busy eating the shack roast, the delicious Nubian butt cow that we had with my drinks. Or not with my drinks, after my drinks. All right. Any other little canon or lore moments that you wanted to touch on?
No, love, other than the one I mentioned, but our droid, oh my gosh, what's the droid's name? I just forgot. I'm learning all these characters. J6. We do believe this is we do believe this is the droid from Mos Castle, right? As we're starting to think that now.
Oh, MD-89, I believe.
Yeah, there's some thoughts there because that MD has a past link to the Jedi. There's some kind of allusions to that, and
Yeah.
they're designed the same. Um, so yeah, I'm not saying whether it's the same droid or not. I don't know, but I think there's a connection there.
I think all of that is flowing from both that droid in Maz's castle and J6 having a similar design to Professor Yang from the Clone Wars
Mm-hmm.
in the Gathering episode. So yeah, I think that there'll probably be some cohesive coming together of what all that means for that design of droid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a great one. That's very excited for the future of that droid. Let's talk about the future, Ken, as we begin to wrap up this epic discussion of a pretty short book. What are your hopes for the future of these characters or this story in particular? Are you interested in following Vern and Imri, Avon and J6, Honesty in the Dalna? We meet that Quarren Neil member, Kara Zoo, I believe, who's going to raid Dalna for recruits to her storm. Dalnan children in particular, which is horrible. Are there any of those stories that you're more excited about?
I want a book called House Staros, from Sena to Avon, or Avon and to Sena. I love this family line. There's a lot of intriguing things in there, a lot of things to deal with, and Santa Staros is, especially as she's presented in that Dr. Afra audio drama, she is very studious, very smart, very, good student. And Afra's kind of the crazy wonky one, right? The crazy Afra, Charlie's going to get you into trouble. And that's kind of their dynamic. But also, Santa's a risk taker. By the time we meet up with her in the Marvel comics, she's gone a different route. And there's just a lot to that character. I know that's a popular character for a reason, but this wasn't just a cheap reference to a name we know. Avon Staros is very intriguing, and that family line is intriguing to me. So give me that book there. I also think Vernestra is just an absolute star, a prodigy for sure, and very interesting. So all these characters are great, but I'm looking forward to following those two.
Yeah, I mean, I think Avon and her adventures with droid evolution and kyber crystal manipulation, that's some pretty intriguing stuff. And yes, I do trust this team that it's not just, we've given them a name. Like, no, there are going to be real connections there, which is really fun. I think for me, I'm most intrigued by Vernestra and Imri, that, that Padawan moment was a great resolution to both of their arcs. But one of the things that I'm really fascinated by is this idea that, what did it do to Obi-Wan to not ever really get to be a Jedi Knight of his own? He just went immediately from Padawan to being the, parent figure of the chosen one. And Vernestra being 16 years old and like, yeah, I'm a prodigy, but I kind of have my head screwed on straight about being a prodigy. And I am 16 and I just accomplished my first mission as a Jedi Knight. But the Force is leading me this way. Imri needs me, so I will be his teacher. That's a really juicy story to me.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Again, she's a star, but and I don't want to see her fall. I want how does she continue to grow and influence those around her in a positive way and an important way? It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Do you think Vernestra's light whip has a greater destiny? Because she has that moment where, it came to her in kind of an intuition, a meditation, a dream. And then she's wondering kind of why she made it and what's it for. And then she's wondering, like, maybe it was to help cut through this jungle and get us to safety. But do you think that was it? Or do you think there is something more?
Well, now I'm backing off my words. She becomes a Night Sister. Duh. There you go. No, I don't know. I have no true expectations of the character other than I want to see more. No, I think it is, because I think for me, it really took a lot of what it represents. That this is kind of this little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. This little light whip of mine. I'm going to let it shine. And I thought that was good. Again, it was not done as a video game. It was not done as a cool figure with a light whip. And this was talked about and approached in a different way. And I really loved how it was presented. So yeah, I hope so. And exactly what you're tying to specifically of like, I don't know. This came to me. Yeah, that's potentially really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love what it represents of the importance of following intuition.
Mhm.
And do you open up parts of yourself that you don't understand on a conscious level, but are very true of yourself? And I feel like that story is really well told in this book, and you highlighting it really well. I admit I'm going to almost a more nerdy place of I I since this book establishes that the light whip is far more efficient at cutting down a jungle to get to safety, that makes me think of, the other villain we have coming is the Drengier, right? The
Hmm.
sentient evil plants, and thinking like, is a light whip good against sentient evil plants?
Ooh, ooh, it's good. And I was expecting the Drengier to show up in this book. I really was. Once they hit that planet there, the Weave, I was like, oh, it was perfect. This is perfect, but not yet, not yet.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, and we
yet.
know that they're coming. I don't think either you or I have cracked Claudia Gray's Into the Dark. I know. I think people. It came out one day, and the next day I was seeing some tweets and getting some tweets. I think people have really taken that one in quickly. So we look forward to getting to that one as well.
Yeah.
Here's my final question for you, Ken, on the future of these characters. It's kind of a question about the future, but kind of a question about the past. Do you want a Master Douglas Sunvale prequel novel?
I mean, for your sake, I hope we get one, sir. This guy's speaking to you. No, yeah, this whole series is kind of a prequel to what we know, right? So, do we get prequels to the prequels to the prequels? Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, no, this is what you need to start at the most central part of your story. You need to jump into the second act. I think that's where we are going with the High Republic. But yeah, there's so many wonderful characters. I want young Porter Ingle for sure. Give me 100-year-old Porter Ingle. So Douglas, and plus, as we talked about before with Alex, Douglas is a great Jedi.
Yeah,
Let's
I
go.
mean, I did. Yeah, when I read just there's a Jedi named Douglas, like that was at first. I was, oh, now this Jedi, that's his name. He's a Douglas. He's a real Douglas, and I want to see not that we aren't getting enough adventures, but it's a tribute that all the characters are interesting, and I would be happy to see an earlier life adventure of Douglas Sunvale at the height of the sloppy Republic.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, anything that we have not talked about that you had in your notes that you wanted to touch on?
No, nothing big. Just overall thoughts. Again, we're spending time on this book for a reason, and not just because we feel we need to keep covering every little corner of the High Republic. We both were getting through, and we wanted to pay the book the respect it deserves. It's really good, and it's a really good continuation of something that's so big and started with such fanfare. And this book was very rewarding. I don't know if I'll always sit down and read every middle grade Star Wars book ever. I don't know that, but this was really really good, and my first real exposure. I think I poked around her other the Sparker of Resistance one, and this is the first time I really really sat with Justina Ireland, and I really loved her work.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really enjoyed this book, and I think much like the Jedi and the Force, we're just going to take this one book at a time, one moment at a time, and see what all we end up covering because it is just a lot of content. Even though we're excited about it, it is a lot to absorb and process and discuss. So we will see what all we keep covering. But once we got started on this, I think we both just really felt like this book is really, really great. It is just as much of an introduction to this era, these ideas, as Light of the Jedi, and really an important part of this launching moment of the High Republic. So we wanted to be sure to spend some time on it. And boy, did we! Another long episode, Ken. So let's head towards a fun question to wrap up. If you were a Jedi, would you keep your Jedi robes neat and pressed?
No, I just can't. I'm not a ragamuffin, but for a while I was known when I first started coming on the scene with the schmoes and everything. I wore suits. That was because I came from straight from my job, and I was a suit, and I love suits and I love ties, but I also don't love ironing, and until recently, really didn't get clothes that fit perfectly well. So I'm a bit of a ragamuffin, despite what I want to be, or in spite of myself, my intentions. So no, I would be a Jedi. They'd be like, "Did you just wake up?" No, 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 no. I'm good. I'm good. I'm ready. Let's go.
I am right there with you. I love suits, but they are not my natural habitat. As much as I wish they were, I think I would want dark black Jedi robes, not because I am tempted by the dark side, but because they hide the wrinkles better. That's my Jedi robe truth. Ken, where can people find us?
You can find us on Twitter at Force Center Pod. We are also on Instagram and YouTube as well. Facebook page is Force Center Podcast. Podcasts available on a lot of different spots, including Anchor, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and now Amazon Music. Merch is available at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. You can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. Support the show, help us grow, and a lot of wonderful things there, including getting into our Discord community. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to kennapzok.com. Also go to thegpa.fun if you want to join the Good People Association, a new program and company I've launched with Josh McCook and Mark Riley.
Excellent. And you can find me and all my stuff, Twitter and Instagram, at Joseph Scrimshaw. And you can go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for all my other comedy adventures. In particular, coming up on Valentine's Day, I'm doing a fun comedy variety show online with my friends, the Double Clicks. There is tickets and info for that on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. Just scroll down just a very tiny bit, and you will find the ticket link. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for beautiful, kind, sloppy Master Douglas Sunvale, this has been Force Center.